Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
Roach, and I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Indeed you are, people. Welcome to another Caribbean Cricket Podcast special. I never know what to call these ones where I do like a little quick 20-minute video looking at, should we call it Caribbean Cricket Podcast News Special? Let's call it something. My name's Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and really and truly I'm just recording this in response to many of the followers, supporters, fans of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast saying, when are you going to say something about the test squad that has just been released? So here is a little 15 to 20 minute video, just kind of breaking down the squad selected, looking at the kind of key talking points. One of the reasons why I'm recording it now is because about 2 hours ago, I attended the press conference with lead selector Desmond Haynes and director of cricket Jimmy Adams, in which key questions were asked about the selection of the test squad. Obviously, there were some very pertinent questions that people wanted to know answers to. So, of course, you know, being the Caribbean Cricket Podcast and purporting to be the only cricket channel where you're going to get real nuance and analysis take place, I had to be there. Had to ask some questions and so on and so forth. So let's break this down. First things first, the West Indies Test squad announced to tour Australia is as follows. Craig Brathwaite, captain. Jermaine Blackwood, vice-captain. Nkrumah Bonner, Shamar Brooks, Tej Chanderpaul, or let's give him his full name, Tej Narayan Chanderpaul, Roston Chase, Josh De Silva, Jason Holder, Alzari Joseph, Carl Mayers, Anderson Phillip, Raymond Reefer, Kemar Roach, Jaden Seals, Devon Thomas. That is the 15-man squad that will be making their way to Australia. Obviously, some players are already there. Those who took part in the T20 World Cup failed campaign did not return home. They're already there with Phil Simmons and many of the backroom staff already beginning preparations for that test series. There will be 2 warm-up games for this particular test series, which I'm not surprised that's happening. More than likely part of that is due to Australia not wanting us to just go there and roll over in 3 days in both test matches. One of them, by the way, is a day-night test match. So there will be 2 warm-up games that West Indies will take part in. A 3-day warm-up game and then a 4-day warm-up game prior to the first test beginning. There is not a warm-up game in between the first and the second test. We have not gone to Australia for a test series since the days of Rajendra Chandrika back in, 2016, I think it was. So this is a long, long time coming, this tour to Australia. And make no mistake, this is super, super tough. Nobody in their right mind expects West Indies to even draw one of the tests, let alone win. So really and truly, this is about seeing some building blocks and seeing some marginal gains, really and truly, and just West Indies trying their best to compete against Australia in their own home conditions. So let's break this squad down. There's 1 or 2 talking points about this squad, but largely speaking, the squad is stable. If you go back and look at the squad that was selected for the series at home versus England and then the series at home versus Bangladesh, every single player there apart from Roston Chase, and even including Tej Chanderpaul, and I'll explain why in a minute, but every single player there is basically took part in either the England series or the Bangladesh series or both. So this is a core unit of players. Even Tej Chanderpaul, he went to the Bangladesh series as a reserve. So it wasn't like Tej hasn't been in and around the squad as well. So even his selection isn't anything major in terms of news. Yes, he's going to be making his debut, his West Indies debut. Obviously, John Campbell has been banned. So yes, he's going to be making his debut. Yes, it's going to be taking place in Australia. But his inclusion isn't actually a major news story. Like anybody who studies West Indies cricket would have known that Tej is the next opener as and when John Campbell fails. Obviously, John Campbell has had the situation taken out of his hands. He hasn't been dropped due to poor performance. Unfortunately, he is now having to potentially appeal what looks like a 4-year ban. So when we've done videos on that already. So Tage now gets his chance. So let's start with the first real talking point. And the first real talking point is Roston Chase's inclusion. Now, having just come out of the press conference with Desmond Haynes and Jimmy Adams, the argument that was given by Desmond Haynes for Roston Chase's inclusion was as follows. He said that the selection team decided that they wanted to take an off-spinner to Australia. So already that immediately rules out Gudakesh Motie, that rules out for Sammy Permol in terms of left armers. They didn't want that. They wanted an off-spinner to take to Australia. So anybody like Permol and Motie, there's your argument already done about why they're not selected. Okay? My issue is this. Desmond says they want an off-spinner, so they've taken Chase. Okay. But here's my problem. The number one off-spinner in the region is still Rakeem Cornwall. In the just completed 4-day championship, which ended in April this year, was it April? It might have been a bit later. Rakeem took Cornwall, played 5 matches, and took 23 wickets at an average of 21. Now, to be fair, lots of the journalists in the press conference put the questions to Desmond and Jimmy and said, well, where's Rakeem? If you wanted an off-spinner, where's Jimbo? Now, Jimmy Adams' response to that was Jimbo was in consideration because, I should start again. There are lots of rumours in the Caribbean that up until Friday night, Rakeem Cornwall's name was in the West Indies Test squad to go to Australia. And the squad that was leaked to me had Rakeem Cornwall's name in it. I'm not saying he was definitely there or not. I'm just saying the one that the number of names that I saw had Rakeem Cornwall's name in it. By Saturday morning, if it was Saturday or maybe it was late on Friday, Rakeem Cornwall's name had gone and Roston Chase had replaced it. Everybody else's name in the squad was exactly who I expected to be in the squad. Rumours in the Caribbean are that Rakeem Cornwall, something has gone wrong re his fitness, and he was a last-minute change, and it was Roston Chase who was selected in his place. I have not been given any 100% confirmation of that being the fact. All I can go on is the factual information that came out of the press conference. And Jimmy Adams' words were that Rakeem Cornwall was part of a group of players, he also called Dominic Drakes, who were in contention, but they were awaiting information from certain areas to confirm whether these players could be picked or not. Jimmy then said that when this information was received, they then had to consider other things. He never went into more detail than that. I think there was a follow-up question by a journalist saying, so what, does that mean fitness? And Jimmy's response to that was, it was medical related, but I'm not at liberty to go into like the details of that. I think he said medical fitness related. So reading between the lines, and this is me saying this isn't Jimmy Adams saying this isn't Desmond Haynes saying this is me reading between the lines. I think Rakeem Cornwall's name was probably there. I think he had been chosen as the premier off-spinner to go to Australia, and he has either failed a fitness test or he is carrying an injury, which Cricket West Indies selectors got the full details of on Friday, and then Rakeem Cornwall's name was removed. That's how I understand it. I'm not saying that's facts. That's how I understand it. That notwithstanding, I still think there are issues with Roston Chase's selection. And there's 2 reasons I've got an issue with it. So if we accept the Jimbo reason that there's a medical reason why Jimbo can't be selected or fitness reason why he can't be selected, so be it, right? Sorry, and I should pause. Some of you are going to say at this juncture and probably write in the comments, yeah, but Jimbo's playing in Super 50 for Leeward Islands. Yes, I know. But even then, some people have messaged me about that, saying Jimbo clearly looks like he's carrying an injury playing for the Leeward Islands. I know he took 4 for 42 in the first game, but maybe the information stacks up that there's actually something physically wrong with Jimbo in terms of being able to go to Australia. I don't know. Anyways, back to Roston. If Desmond and the selection committee then wanted an off-spinner, my issue is this. For most of the year and last year, when there has been like a President's 11 game or something purporting to be West Indies A or best versus best, the off-spinner of choice has been Brian Charles from Trinidad. And in the just completed 4-day championship, Brian Charles was the second best off spinner in the competition. He also played 5 games and he took 16 wickets at an average of 27.5. I'm not saying that's brilliant. I'm just saying that he was the second best off spinner in the Caribbean. Brian Charles has also been repeatedly selected for West Indies A duty, President's 11 duty, tour match duties against a touring side. So my problem is this. If they wanted to take an off spinner, why not pick the person who clearly has been getting all the chances at A-team level to travel to Australia? Why go back to Roston Chase, who, when you look at his first-class numbers, so let me just pull up Roston Chase. I don't even know if it's on my data sheet, people. I should have looked at this beforehand. But true say, Roston Chase played 3 games in the Red Bull Championship this year. He took 6 wickets at 22. So in fairness, to give Roston his due, maybe they've looked at that and gone, right, Roston, 3 games, 6 wickets at 22, economy 2.27, versus Brian Charles, 5 matches, 16 wickets at 27, economy 3.17. So maybe they've looked at it as Roston Chase and said, you know what? Given Roston Chase's international experience, Brian Charles is inexperienced. We need an off spinner. Let's take Roston. If you use that line of argument, I can just about understand how they'd come to the rationale that Roston should travel. But my argument and my problem with it is Roston hasn't done enough for me to justify getting back into the West Indies team already. When he was finally dropped, and deservedly so, from Red Bull duty for the West Indies, Roston had failed. You lot should know, if you're a Caribbean Cricket Podcast fan, and particularly if you follow our Twitter feed, you should know that I was tweeting on a regular about Roston's failures with the bat, right? And I have tweeted regularly that if Roston was ever going to get back into the West Indies team, his batting has declined so much, he should be batting at like number 8 to number 11, somewhere there. That's how bad his batting is, right? That's how bad his batting has fallen off. And I don't want to hear from anyone about, but he's got 5 Test hundreds. When was the last one? Okay? My problem is, what is the message we're sending here if Roston can just walk back into the side so easily? Has he done enough to warrant walking back into a West Indies test side or test squad? Has he done enough? For me personally, no, he hasn't. One of the journalists then said to Desmond, and apologies if I haven't named the journalist, I'd have to listen back to the recording to remind myself. One of the journalists said, so what are we saying then about Roston? Do you now consider him a bowling all-rounder or a batting all-rounder? And this is where Desmond, I think, got the issue a bit confused here, and I think his answer probably wasn't good enough. Because Desmond said, we still consider him a batting all-rounder. Now, I think that's a faux pas there by Des. Because if you still consider Roston a batting all-rounder, why have you taken him as the premier off-spinner in the team then? I'll say that again. If they still consider Roston a batting all-rounder, why has he been chosen with off-spin as his primary suit for this particular tour? Because we all know his batting's not good enough right now to justify a recall, but you're saying you see him as a batting all-rounder. So there's just too much confusion for me. There's too much. Do we believe that Roston Chase has a skill set to take wickets in Australia with his off-spin when that's not what you believe his primary suit is? I mean, comment below, people. Those who are watching this or sharing it, and when you watch this, comment below with your thoughts on it. I just feel there's too many holes in this Roston Chase selection. I get it a little bit because of his international experience, but I just think it sends the wrong precedent to someone like Brian Charles as to why were we wasting time selecting him then in 18 matches and stuff? What was the point? Because when we were selecting Brian Charles in 18 matches, Santoki and I were discussing it, saying, why is Rakeem not in those matches then? What? Because then when Brian Charles was getting selected, we were like, well, what message are we sending to Rakeem Cornwall if he's not being seen as the off-spinner to get the chances in the A-team games or the tour matches? And then Rakeem goes and takes the most wickets in our first-class competition. Now my point is, so what message are we sending to Brian Charles then? If Roston Chase can basically do not a whole lot and get straight back into the test squad again. Someone on Twitter, can't remember who, apologies for not remembering, said, tweeted us and said, this just shows, he was actually agreeing with a point I'd made a few days ago. He said, In fact, this might be in Facebook. He said, this just backs up Mash's point that the cupboard is bare. The talent pool isn't deep enough. Because if we can go back to Roston so quickly, that we're clearly saying that the talent pool isn't deep enough then. So many questions. Okay, so that's the Roston Chase selection. And here's the joke, people. I wrote down my likely 11 to start the first test versus Australia. I've actually got Roston Chase in it. That's the biggest joke of it all. When I wrote down my team, I've actually got Roston in it. And so after everything I've said, I do actually have him in my 11 because I just looked at him and said, well, who's going to be bowling any level of spin if they have to just kind of break overs up a bit? And that's potentially why Roston is in this side. Probably batting at number 11, though. So other than that, the only other talking points that I saw from people about questioning selections, Shamar Brooks' selection was questioned by quite a lot of people. Brooks played against England and averaged 16 and then was dropped for the series against Bangladesh, and now he's back again. My only issue with this is what are we saying to Brooks? You're in, then you're out. Now you're back in again. Does that mean he's going to get back into the side? Like what? Lots of people message me saying, where's Brandon King? Brandon King only played one match in the 5 days competition this year. Obviously not his fault. He was on West Indies duty. He scored a century. Brooks didn't do anything in his 4-day championship matches that he played. He got dropped against Bangladesh or for the Bangladesh series, and he's just back again. So what was the rationale for Brooks getting back into the squad? I'm not anti it. I just struggle when I can't see a rationale for why somebody gets into a squad. So bear with me, because I'm just going to bring up, it's always important to bring up stats and facts to support arguments, right? So Shamar Brooks, I don't even know if he's going to be on here, you know. He had such a poor run in the 5-day champ. I bet I can't even find my guy. He's not even on here. No, he's not on here. Yeah, that kind of proves the point. In the top 30, Brooks wasn't even in the top 25 or top 30 run scorers in the 4-day championship this year. To put that in perspective, Brandon King was, and he only played one match. So what did Brooks do to warrant getting back into the test squad? I'll say it again. He averaged 16 versus England, didn't produce anything in the 4-day championship worth talking about, dropped versus Bangladesh, and now he's back in versus Australia. I can't explain the rationale for his selection over someone else. Another person who caught a bit of heat for their selection, Raymond Reefer. I've got no issue with Raymond Reefer being in the squad. Raymond Reefer was called up to bat at My issue was Raymond Reefer was called up to bat at number 3 versus Bangladesh. What on earth was Raymond Reefer doing as a test match number 3 against Bangladesh? In that series, he averaged 11. Unsurprisingly, what on earth is he batting at number 3 in test cricket? But all that said, I think he deserves his spot or retain his spot because, okay, yeah, he looked out of his depth against Bangladesh, but that's one series, 2 matches. That's not enough to just drop a man to the wayside. He deserves to still be in the squad. And of course, compared to everybody else in that team, Raymond offers a left arm seam option. So that, in fairness, may get Raymond Reefer into the side. I'll talk about why I might say that or why that might be the case in a second. And then lastly, Devon Thomas. I got into a Facebook warfare with an individual who I won't name over Devon Thomas's selection. This person said, "What on earth is Devon Thomas doing in the squad?" And I said to this person, "But of course Devon Thomas is in the squad." To me, this one's not even a debate. Devon Thomas was selected in the Bangladesh squad, right? And the reason why Devon Thomas was selected is because he was the 3rd top run scorer in the 4-day championship. West Indies need batters. He was the 3rd top run scorer. Who was number 1? Craig Brathwaite, 584 runs. Who was number 2? Tay Shandapur, 439 runs. Who was number 3? Devon Thomas, 414 runs. What is the point of our domestic system if we're not going to reward the players who do well in it? Devon Thomas got rewarded for his 414 runs, at an average of 59, I believe it was, by a call-up to the test match squad for the Bangladesh series. He didn't play a match. Ergo, why would he then get dropped for Australia? So those people saying, what's Devon Thomas doing there? Of course Devon Thomas is there because he didn't play versus Bangladesh. So why would he then get dropped from the squad when it's a 15-man squad to travel to Australia. Of course he's going to be there, much less he also can wicket keep. So if there's an injury to Josh Da Silva, Devon Thomas would then be the replacement with the gloves if there has to be someone. So I didn't understand the fury from some quarters with Devon Thomas's selection. That just made sense to me. The guy has to be rewarded for succeeding in the 4-day champ, and he's not played yet, and he can wicket keep. Ergo, it makes total sense why Devon Thomas would be included in the squad. So for me, those are the 4 big talking points. Roston, Raymond Reefer, Shamar Brooks, and for some people, Devon Thomas. But Roston, of course, is the biggest talking point of them all. It's too early to say what will be the likely test lineup in the first test versus Australia. We've got 2 warm-up games, so anything could happen. But when I put down a provisional 11, this is what I wrote down. Craig Brathwaite and Tay Shandapur will open. I mean, come on, everybody knows that. Number 3 is the big question mark I've got here. I do not believe that they want Nkrumah Bonner to bat at number 3. I don't think Nkrumah Bonner wants to bat at number 3. So in my squad at the moment, I suspect any one of Devon, Raymond Reefer, Shamar Brooks, or Roston Chase could actually get into the squad as that batter. I'm not saying they will necessarily bat number 3, but I believe there is a spot in the squad for an extra batter. Right? Let me just check my team. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Yeah. So someone out of Thomas, Brooks, Reefer, or Chase is going to bat in that squad, in that first 11, and possibly at number 3. I'll let you lot decide in the comments below who you would go for. Bonner 4, Blackwood 5, potentially Holder at 6, Mayers 7. It could be the other way round. Da Silva 8. Joseph 9, Roach 10, Seals 11. I'll say that team again. Craig and Tage to open. Someone out of Thomas, Brooks, Reefer, or Chase at number 3, or somewhere in that top order. Bonner 4, Blackwood 5, Holder or Mayers 6, with the other one being 7. To Silva 8. I would actually bat to Silva above both Mayers and Holder, by the way, but I'm just saying this is what I think. Joseph 9, Roach 10, Seals 11. That's what I believe the squad will be. In my team, I actually have Chase down as the person who potentially plays. Why? Because when I put that team together, even though Australia will favour pace, I looked at it and I was like, so who's the person who's going to bowl like the 6 to 8 overs of spin in the day when all the pacers are tired? Because the pacers in that side that I've got would be Mayers, Holder, Joseph, Roach, Seals. And I was like, so who's the variety from... Obviously, Mayers is a swing bowler. Holder, Joseph, Roach, Seals, right arm, medium, fast, right? I said there has to be someone who's offering some level of variety, and this is why I suspect that Chase might actually get in the squad. If it's not Chase, don't be surprised if it's Raymond Reefer because of his left arm seam option. But that's what I've got as the initial 11. Will that be the 11 that plays against Australia? I don't know. Like I say, there's 2 warm-up games, so it's too early to actually ultimately say this is what the team will be. But ultimately, Test squad has been announced. Plenty of talking points. Get in the comments below. Follow the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. You can find us Twitter, Instagram at Carib Cricket. Like, share, subscribe. If you want to support us, you can become a patron of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast for as little as £2, $2 a month. www.patreon.com/ I don't know what the / is. Sorry. Let me find it, people. I don't even know my own thing. / or why have I put this up? Apologies, people. Look at me get my own thing wrong. Where are we? People, I can't even find it. Oh my gosh, look at me doing that madness on my own screen. So www.patreon.com / I believe it's Carib Cricket, but right about now, because I'm doing touchscreen, I can't even find my own stuff. So you can become a patron as well, but more importantly of all, if you believe there's somebody who would like to watch this, share it with them. Get in the comments below, like, share, subscribe, and let me know what you think about the West Indies Test squad, people. So this has just been a little 25-minute special looking at it, and look out for some more content coming up over the next few weeks, days, hours, etc. Peace, people.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.